What happens after we take our final breath? Across every continent, cultures gave death a face, sometimes divine, sometimes monstrous. In Egypt, the dead were judged by a god with green skin. In Japan, silent spirits waited in the shadows. The Aztecs offered blood to their skeletal lord, while the Greeks feared the river that led to Hades' cold throne. But not all death gods were cruel. Some offered peace, protection, or even celebration. Stay to the end to find out which culture turned death into a party, and which believed your soul could be devoured. Hit subscribe if mythology fascinates you. Chapter 1. Why do all cultures create death gods? Death is the one thing every human will experience, yet it remains the greatest mystery. No matter where someone is born or what time they live in, they will wonder what happens when life ends. That question has haunted humanity for thousands of years. And from that fear, from that uncertainty, stories were born. Mythology became the answer to what science could not explain. In every corner of the world, cultures created powerful beings to represent death. Gods, spirits, demons, guardians, judges. These were not just stories. They were tools to make sense of the inevitable. When someone you loved died, it brought pain and confusion. By telling stories of the soul leaving the body and traveling to another world, people found comfort. But comfort is only part of it. Humans also use these myths to control behavior. If you knew that a god was waiting to punish you for your crimes after death, you might think twice before committing them. If a priest told you that your soul would suffer in fire or ice, you are more likely to follow religious law. In this way, death gods were both spiritual and political. They helped build the foundation of order and morality. And then there is the question of fear. Death is frightening. We fear pain. We fear the unknown. We fear the loss of everything we are. But a god of death can be talked to, prayed to, respected. It gives death a face. It gives us something to bargain with or blame. A faceless death is terrifying. But if death wears a crown, carries a staff, and follows rules, we can imagine it is fair. In many cultures, death gods are not even evil. They are judges, caretakers, or guides. Some myths describe them as kind, others as cruel, but most agree they serve a purpose. They do not kill, they receive. They do not destroy, they transform. From the deserts of ancient Egypt to the icy hills of Scandinavia, people imagined death as part of a journey, not the end of one. The afterlife could be a paradise, a wasteland, a courtroom, or a cycle of rebirth. But whatever form it took, it always had a guardian, someone who ruled that realm, someone who knew the rules. That figure became central to funerals, prayers, and rituals. Many of these myths also reflect what each culture valued most. For warriors, death gods ruled over fields of eternal battle. For farmers, they watched over the land and the changing of seasons. For kings, they represented power that even royalty could not escape. In every case, the stories told about death were mirrors of how people lived. So why do all cultures create death gods? Because we are not content to face the unknown in silence. We turn the silence into a story with structure, with meaning, with names and faces. Death becomes a place, a god, a choice. And through those stories, we find ways to live better, love deeper, and leave something behind. Now that we understand why death gods exist, let us begin our journey through the underworlds of history. Let us visit the places where the dead go and meet the beings who rule over them. Let us begin where death was more majestic than terrifying. Let us begin in the sands of ancient Egypt. Chapter 2. Osiris, the judge of the Egyptian afterlife. To understand death in ancient Egypt, you must first understand Osiris. He was not just a god. He was the promise of rebirth, the symbol of order after chaos, and the ruler of the silent land beyond life. His story is one of betrayal, resurrection, and eternal judgment. Long ago, Osiris was a beloved king, wise and just. He ruled the land with fairness, teaching humans how to farm, govern, and live in harmony. But his brother Set burned with jealousy. Set craved power, and one day he tricked Osiris into stepping into a coffin during a grand feast. As Osiris lay inside, Set sealed the box shut and threw it into the Nile. The coffin drifted away, carrying the lifeless body of Osiris. Set claimed the throne. But Osiris's wife, Isis, did not give up. She searched endlessly, piecing his body back together with love and magic. With her power and the help of other gods, she brought Osiris back to life, not to the world of the living, but to a new realm, the world of the dead. Osiris became the god of the afterlife. He ruled Duat, the underworld, not with fear, but with wisdom. When a person died in Egypt, they believed their soul faced judgment before Osiris in the hall of Mut, the goddess of truth and balance. The heart of the dead was weighed against the feather of Mat. If the heart was light and free of sin, the soul passed into the field of reeds, a paradise where crops grew forever and families were reunited. But if the heart was heavy with lies or cruelty, it was thrown to Ammit. Ammit was no god. She was a terrifying creature with the head of a crocodile, the body of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus. If she devoured your heart, your soul vanished forever. No afterlife, no second chance, just oblivion. This ritual was not just myth. Egyptians lived their lives with this judgment in mind. They spoke truthfully, honored their families, and respected the gods, hoping their hearts would be light enough to pass Osiris's test. Tombs were filled with negative confessions, declarations of innocence like, "I have not stolen, I have not killed, I have not cursed the gods." Osiris became more than a god. He became the reason Egyptians believed death was not the end. Each year, as the Nile flooded and brought new life to the fields, they saw his story reflected in the earth. His death mirrored the dry season, and his resurrection came with the floods. Life, death, rebirth, always in a cycle. Temples were built in his honor. Tombs were decorated with vivid scenes of judgment, of Osiris seated on a throne, of the scale, the feather, and the silent Ammit waiting nearby. The Book of the Dead, a collection of spells and guidance for the afterlife, often centered around Osiris and the journey to stand before him. Even pharaohs, with all their power, feared this moment. They prepared their entire lives for that one trial, hoping to join Osiris in the afterlife, not be erased by the devourer. Osiris gave the dead a purpose. He gave the living a guide. He turned death from a black void into a court of justice, where truth was the only path to peace. From Egypt's deserts and temples, our journey through death myths continues. Next, we travel to the cold rivers and misty realms of ancient Greece, where another god waits in the shadows, ruling not with kindness, but with silent power. Let us now descend into Hades. Chapter 3. Hades, the Greek lord of the underworld. After the warm sands of Egypt, we step into a colder, darker world, a realm shrouded in mist, filled with shadows and silence. The ancient Greeks called it the underworld, and its ruler was Hades. Hades is often misunderstood. He is not the devil. He does not tempt mortals or punish them out of cruelty. He is not evil. He is firm, silent, and fair. While his brothers, Zeus and Poseidon, ruled the sky and sea, Hades was given the land of the dead, a role no god wanted, but one that Hades performed with order and dignity. A Greek underworld is not just one place. It is a vast realm with many layers. At the center lies the kingdom of Hades, where most souls go after death. It is neither paradise nor torment, but a gray, shadowy existence. Here, the dead are called shades. They drift without pain, but also without joy. Then there is Tartarus, far deeper than the rest. It is not ruled by Hades directly, but serves as a prison for the worst offenders. Titans, monsters, and oathbreakers are cast into Tartarus, where suffering is endless. While Hades oversees the whole realm, he is more a warden of balance than a punisher of sin. Yet Hades did commit one act that shaped the myths forever. He fell in love. The story of Persephone begins in spring, when the young goddess walked through blooming meadows. As she picked flowers, the earth cracked open, and Hades emerged. He took her to the underworld to be his queen. Her mother, Demeter, goddess of the harvest, was devastated. In her grief, she made the world barren. Crops withered, famine spread, and mortals cried out. Eventually, a deal was struck. Persephone would spend part of the year with her mother, and part with Hades, and so the seasons were born. Spring and summer bring her return to the surface. Fall and winter mark her descent back to the underworld. This tale is not just about love or abduction. It is a symbol of life and death, growth and decay. Persephone bridges both worlds. She reminds us that death is not final, and life always returns. To reach the underworld, every soul had to cross the river Styx. This river was not just water. It was sacred. Even the gods swore oaths upon it. Breaking such an oath brought terrible consequences. To cross the river, souls needed to pay Charon, the skeletal ferryman. He carried the dead across in his boat, but only if they had a coin. That is why Greeks buried their dead with a coin under the tongue or on the eyes. Without payment, a soul would wander the shores forever. On the other side, the soul would be judged. Some would go to the Elysian fields, a place of rest for heroes and the virtuous. Others might face punishment or remain in the neutral lands of Hades. The Greek vision of death was not about reward or fear. It was about balance. Hades did not seek worship, and temples for him were rare. He represented the inevitable. Not good, not evil, just necessary. Hades stands as a reminder that every life ends. But that end is not chaos. It has a shape, a keeper, and a law. Through Persephone, Charon, and the river Styx, the Greeks showed us that death has rules. As we leave the silent halls of Hades behind, our path turns east to the lands of fire and rebirth. Next, we explore a vision of death that is fierce, cosmic, and ever-changing. Prepare to meet Yama, the Hindu god of death. Chapter 4. Hel, Norse goddess of the cold. Silent afterlife, from the misty rivers of the Greek underworld, we now travel north. The air grows colder. The ground is covered in frost, and a heavy silence settles over the land. This is Niflheim, the land of mist. And at its heart lies Helheim, the realm of the dead ruled by the goddess Hel. Hel is unlike any other deity. She is the daughter of Loki, the trickster, and a giantess. Her body tells her story without words. One half is that of a living woman, pale and human. The other half is a corpse, decayed and blue. She is both alive and dead, embodying the boundary between life and the afterlife. While warriors who died bravely were taken to Valhalla or Folkvanger, Hel's realm was for the rest. Those who died from illness, old age, or misfortune found themselves in her care. There were no roaring feasts here, no eternal battles. Helheim was cold, still, and quiet. It was a place forgotten by song, ruled by a queen who asked for no worship, only silence. This contrast between Valhalla and Helheim reveals a deep truth about Norse culture. In their brutal, warrior-driven world, dying in battle was everything. A glorious death earned you a place in Odin's hall, where you would fight and feast until Ragnarok. But to die quietly, in bed, or from disease, was seen as a lesser end. That is not to say Hel was cruel. Her role was necessary. She gave the uncelebrated dead a place to rest. She ruled with sternness, not malice. Yet the very idea of being forgotten, of ending in silence rather than glory, filled the Norse with dread. It was not Hel herself they feared. It was the idea of dying without honor, without purpose. This fear shaped their stories. Heroes would charge into hopeless battles, seeking a death that would be remembered. Skalds would sing of warriors who laughed in the face of doom. Even in old age, some would take up arms again, hoping for a fate greater than Helheim. But what does this tell us about how cultures shape their afterlife myths? In Greece, death was inevitable and accepted, a neutral passage overseen by a fair but distant god. In Norse belief, death was something to fight. Honor, reputation, and the manner of your end decided everything. The afterlife was not just about where you went, but how you got there. Hel's realm reminds us of the quiet majority, the lives not lived on battlefields. She watches over them with a cold, steady gaze. She gives them space to rest, far from the noise of gods and glory. In this way, she represents a different kind of power. Not the power of war or fire, but the power of inevitability, of time, of endings that come without fanfare. As we leave the frozen halls of Helheim, we step away from silence and sorrow, and toward a belief system where death is both judgment and rebirth, where karma decides your fate and the cycle never truly ends. Our next guide is Yama, the Hindu god who records every deed and determines every soul's next path. From the quiet queen of the forgotten dead, we now enter the intricate realm of cosmic balance and moral consequence. Chapter 5. Mictlantecuhtli, Aztec god of death and bones. From the icy halls of Helheim, we journey now to a land of stone pyramids, burning incense, and vibrant skies. Here, in the heart of the Aztec Empire, death was not feared as an end, but honored as part of an eternal cycle. And at the very center of this belief stood Mictlantecuhtli, the god of death, the guardian of bones, and ruler of Mictlan. Mictlantecuhtli's realm was not a place you simply arrived at. Mictlan, the Aztec underworld, was a vast and treacherous place with 9 distinct levels. Each soul, after death, had to journey through these layers. They faced challenges like windstorms filled with obsidian blades, mountains that crashed together, and rivers of blood. It was not punishment, but purification, a final test before finding peace. Mictlantecuhtli was always watching, often depicted with a skull for a face, empty eye sockets, and teeth bared in a permanent grimace. He wore bones and carried them like treasure. His body was sometimes shown flayed, with visible ribs and blood dripping from his hands. He was not a symbol of fear for the Aztecs, but of inevitability. His domain was not evil, only necessary. Associated with owls, spiders, bats, and the night, Mictlantecuhtli represented all that existed in the shadows. Unlike the Christian concept of hell, Mictlan was not reserved for the wicked. It was the final destination for most people. Only those who died in battle, childbirth, or sacrifice went elsewhere, often to more divine realms. The Aztecs believed that the journey to Mictlan took 4 years. During this time, the soul wandered, suffered, and was stripped of earthly burdens. Only then could it rest in peace. To aid this passage, rituals and offerings were made. Dogs were sometimes buried with their owners to help guide them through the underworld's rivers. And above all, Mictlantecuhtli had to be appeased. Human sacrifice was one of the ways the Aztecs maintained balance with their gods, and Mictlantecuhtli was no exception. Sacrifices were made to him to ensure that the sun would rise, that crops would grow, and that the dead would find their way safely. While brutal to modern eyes, this practice was rooted in deep spiritual and cosmic belief. Death fed life. The blood of mortals sustained the gods. Bones held particular importance in Mictlantecuhtli's myth. He was obsessed with them, and in one famous tale, the gods needed bones from Mictlan to create a new race of humans. Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, descended into Mictlan to retrieve them. But Mictlantecuhtli, ever cunning, tried to trap him. A chase ensued, and when Quetzalcoatl finally escaped, he stumbled and dropped the bones, breaking them. That, the Aztecs said, is why people are born in different shapes and sizes. This myth, like so many Aztec stories, reflects their deep understanding of cycles. Creation and destruction were intertwined. The gods gave life, but always asked something in return. Mictlantecuhtli was the keeper of the past, the collector of all that had ended. And through him, the future could begin again. From the somber queen of the Norse dead to the bone lord of Mesoamerica, each culture views death through its own mirror. For the Aztecs, death was not something to escape, but something to honor, face head-on, and embrace as a bridge to renewal. Next, we cross into the East, into lands of balance, karma, and cosmic record-keeping, where death is neither punishment nor reward, but the next turn on an infinite wheel. It is time to meet Yama, the Hindu and Buddhist god of death, and learn how moral consequence shapes the afterlife in India and beyond. Chapter 6. Yama, Hindu and Buddhist Lord of Death. From the towering temples of Mesoamerica, we now step into a different spiritual landscape, one shaped by balance, duty, and the infinite turn of rebirth. Here, in the philosophies of India, death is not an end or even a punishment. It is part of a cycle. And guiding that cycle is Yama, the god who records every deed, judges every soul, and ensures that all things return in due time. In Hindu mythology, Yama is the first mortal to die. Because of this, he became the ruler of the departed and the guardian of justice. He rides a buffalo, carries a noose to pull souls from their bodies, and sits in judgment at the gates of the afterlife. His gaze is said to be calm but firm, never cruel, and always fair. Yama is not seen as a monster or a villain. He is a cosmic official, maintaining the laws that govern all life. In Buddhism, Yama serves a similar but more symbolic role. He is not a god to be worshipped, but a force within the wheel of samsara. He appears in vivid depictions of the Bhava Chakra, the wheel of life, holding it in his grasp. The wheel itself shows all realms of existence, from divine heavens to the lowest hells. In the center of it all spins karma, the energy of action and consequence. When a person dies, it is Yama who consults the book of deeds. Every action in life, no matter how small, is written there. Based on this karmic record, the soul is directed to its next destination. That might be a peaceful rebirth, or a visit to Naraka, the hell realms. These places are not eternal. They are temporary states, shaped by one's actions. Eventually, every soul moves on, whether through more lives or through spiritual progress. Yama's hells are vivid and terrifying. Some are icy. Others burn. Some are filled with screams and punishment. But all of them serve a purpose. They are not about revenge or torment. They are about purification. Just like the Aztec Mictlan or the trials in the Greek underworld, they are stages in a greater journey. Unlike many other death gods, Yama is intimately tied to hope. He is feared, yes, but he also represents structure and meaning. In the end, every soul has a path forward. No one is trapped forever. As long as Dharma is followed, as long as good is done, the soul grows lighter and closer to liberation. The teachings of karma and rebirth are central to both Hindu and Buddhist belief. Death is not a door slamming shut. It is one more rotation of a great wheel. Yama keeps that wheel turning, never too fast, never too slow. His justice ensures that what we do matters, even after we are gone. In India, death is not the final act. It is the beginning of something new. And Yama stands quietly at the crossroads, book in hand, reminding us that our actions echo far beyond a single lifetime. Now we journey to a place where death is not just a mystery, but a reunion with ancestors. A place where spiritual rituals, nature, and harmony shape what comes after. It is time to meet the Shinigami of Japan and explore how death can be peaceful, beautiful, and deeply connected to family and memory. Chapter 7. Shinigami, Japanese Spirits of Death. From the endless cycle of reincarnation in India, we now move east to Japan, where death takes on a more spiritual and emotional shape. Here, the boundary between the living and the dead is thin. It shifts with the seasons, flows with rituals, and depends deeply on how one lived and how one is remembered. And guiding this delicate balance are the Shinigami, the spirits of death. Unlike Yama or Hades, Shinigami are not gods in the traditional sense. They do not rule grand underworlds or pass judgment on souls. In fact, the concept of Shinigami is relatively modern in Japanese history. The word itself did not appear until the Edo period, around the 17th century. But even before that, the ideas behind them were already deeply rooted in older traditions. In ancient Japan, death was not seen as a singular force or figure. Instead, it was part of a larger spiritual web. Shinto, the indigenous religion of Japan, teaches that everything has a spirit or kami. Rivers, trees, mountains, even emotions and events. Death was seen as a transformation, where the soul became an ancestor or sometimes a restless ghost. Rituals were held to purify the living and guide the spirits peacefully to the other side. When Buddhism arrived from China and India, it brought new layers to these beliefs. Ideas of karma, rebirth, and spiritual progression began to blend with Shinto customs. The result was a rich and complex view of death. Souls could become protectors of the family or turn into vengeful spirits if their life ended in pain or injustice. The Shinigami grew out of this blend, not as evil beings, but as psychopomps, guides who helped souls transition from life to death. Some stories describe Shinigami as invisible figures that gently whisper to people when their time has come. Others show them as shadowy presences that linger near those filled with despair. The way a Shinigami appears often reflects the life of the person they visit. A calm death brings a peaceful guide. A violent or unresolved death might summon something darker. This dual nature, peaceful and vengeful, is central to Japanese death lore. A happy spirit can bless its descendants. A troubled spirit, or yurei, might haunt a place for generations. That is why rituals like Obon, the Festival of the Dead, are so important in Japan. Families light lanterns, offer food, and pray to guide the spirits of their ancestors home. It is a celebration, not of fear, but of respect. In modern culture, Shinigami have taken on new forms. In anime and manga, they often appear as characters with strong personalities and moral ambiguity. In Death Note, the Shinigami Rook watches with curiosity as a human uses the notebook to control life and death. In Bleach, Soul Reapers battle evil spirits and protect the balance between worlds. These stories take ancient ideas and transform them for a new generation, but the roots remain. Death is not simply an end, it is a journey, and every soul deserves a proper passage. Whether feared or honored, the spirits of death in Japan reflect a culture deeply tied to its past. A culture that understands grief and memory are powerful forces. In the end, Shinigami are not monsters. They are reminders that how we live shapes how we die and how we are remembered. As we close this chapter, we turn our eyes to one final destination, one that combines war, judgment, resurrection, and eternal rest. It is time to visit the land of the Nile and meet Osiris, the Egyptian god who turned death into a gateway to eternal life. Chapter 8. Anku, Baron Samedi, and other lesser-known death deities. Our journey through the gods of death now takes us to some of the world's lesser-known, but no less fascinating figures. These deities and spirits may not have the global fame of Hades or Osiris, but they reveal how diverse and creative humanity's views of death can be. From the misty hills of Celtic lands to the vibrant rituals of the Caribbean, death gods take many forms, sometimes gentle guides, sometimes fearsome punishers. In Celtic mythology, we meet Anku, a grim figure wrapped in mystery. Anchu is often described as a tall, hooded skeleton who travels the countryside in a cart, collecting the souls of the dead. Unlike the terrifying Grim Reaper image popular in modern culture, Anku is not evil or vengeful. He is more of a caretaker, guiding the dead to the afterlife. Stories say he is the last person to die in a parish each year, cursed to serve as the collector until the next death. His presence is a reminder of the inevitability of death, but also of respect for the natural cycle of life. His silent cart rolling through foggy Celtic fields is a powerful image of the passage from life to death. Traveling westward to the Caribbean, we find a much livelier figure in Baron Samedi, one of the most famous spirits in Haitian Vodou. Baron Samedi rules over the cemetery and the dead, but he is also a guardian of life and fertility. He is easily recognized by his top hat, dark glasses, and a broad, mischievous smile. Unlike many death gods who inspire fear, Baron Samedi is a trickster and a protector. He is known for his crude humor, his ability to heal the sick, and his fierce defense of his followers. His role is complex. He opens the gates between the living and the dead, but he also reminds people to live fully. His energy is wild, unpredictable, and deeply human. He embodies the thin line between life and death, laughter and mourning. In the Philippines, the spirit world includes gods like Anito and Magwing, rulers of the afterlife who oversee the journey of souls. Their myths vary among the islands, but many share a belief in spirits that protect the dead and ensure safe passage to the afterlife. In many African traditions, gods and ancestors govern death with a strong emphasis on community and continuity. For example, the Yoruba people honor Ishu, a trickster who can both guide souls and test the living. These beliefs often blend respect for ancestors with ideas about judgment and rebirth. What ties all these figures together is the balance between fear and comfort. Some are terrifying punishers who bring justice to the wicked. Others are gentle guides who ease the soul's transition. Many embody both aspects, reminding us that death is neither simple nor uniform. It is a complex experience that cultures interpret through stories and symbols. Anku's silent collection of souls echoes the inevitability of death in Celtic fog. Baron Samedi's wild laughter invites us to confront mortality with boldness and joy. Filipino and African death deities show us that death is part of a wider spiritual network connecting the living, the dead, and the divine. These lesser-known gods and spirits enrich our understanding of death's many faces. They teach us that whether through silence, humor, or ritual, humans everywhere seek to understand what awaits beyond life. And that journey, with all its mysteries, is as much about living well as dying. As we close this chapter, we prepare to meet a God whose story has shaped entire religions and philosophies. The God who judges, punishes, and redeems. Yama, Lord of Death and the cycles of karma in Hinduism and Buddhism. Chapter 9. What these myths say about humanity. As we reach the end of our journey through gods and spirits of death from around the world, it's time to reflect on what these myths reveal about us as humans. Across cultures and centuries, the stories we tell about death share common threads. They show us what we fear, what we hope for, and how we make sense of the unknown. In many ways, myths about death are less about the afterlife itself and more about the human experience of facing the end of life. One of the clearest lessons is that what we fear most is not death itself, but the pain and suffering that often come with dying. Many of the gods of death we met embody this fear. Whether it is the cold silence of hell or the brutal judgment of Yama, these figures remind us of the discomfort and uncertainty that surround death. The terrors of the journey to the afterlife, like crossing the river Styx or facing the Aztec underworld, symbolize our dread of pain and loss rather than death as a simple event. It is the process, the struggle to let go of life, that myths focus on. This shows a deep human desire to ease suffering, to find meaning even in the hardest moments. Another important theme is the desire for justice and peace after death. Across cultures, death gods often serve as judges or guides who reward the good and punish the wicked. The ancient Greeks believed Hades ruled with stern fairness, while Yama's Book of Deeds determines the soul's fate in Hindu and Buddhist traditions. Even barren Samity's playful trickster nature carries a sense of moral balance. This reflects a universal hope that life's struggles and injustices will be corrected beyond the grave. We want to believe that good deeds will be remembered and evil will not go unpunished. The idea of justice in the afterlife gives comfort and order to a world often chaotic and unfair. The myths also mirror the core values and beliefs of their cultures. For the Celts, Enku's quiet duty shows respect for the natural cycle and acceptance of death as part of life. The Norse ideal of dying honorably in battle to reach Valhalla reflects a warrior culture that prized courage and glory. In Japan, the Shinigami embody the influence of ancestors and karma, linking death to a continuing spiritual journey. These stories are cultural mirrors. They show us what a society values most, whether it is bravery, honor, balance, or community. The gods of death become symbols of these values, teaching us how to live and die well according to our traditions. Ultimately, what all these myths have in common is that death is not just an end, but a story we tell ourselves. These stories give shape to the unknown, transforming fear into meaning. They connect us to the past through shared rituals and beliefs, and to the future through hopes of what comes next. Whether through terrifying punishers or gentle guides, death myths remind us that life and death are deeply intertwined. They challenge us to face our mortality with courage, to seek justice and peace, and to honor the values that define us. In this way, death becomes more than a biological fact. It is a profound human experience made rich and complex through myth. As we close this exploration, we see that these gods and spirits are reflections of our own hopes, fears, and dreams. They invite us to understand death, not just as an ending, but as a story we create to make sense of life itself. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the gods of death across cultures. What part of these myths spoke to you most? Share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into mythology every week. Until next time, stay curious. As we wrap up this journey through the gods and spirits who rule over death across the world, it's clear that death is never simply an end. Instead, it is a doorway, a passage, shaped by the stories we tell, the fears we hold, and the cultures that shape us. Each myth offers a unique vision of what lies beyond life, revealing how humanity has wrestled with the great mystery for thousands of years. From the cold halls of hell to the stern judgment of Hades, from the bone-filled realm of Mictlantecuhtli to the karmic balance of Yama, these gods are reflections of our hopes, fears, and values. They teach us that death is more than a final moment. It is a complex journey full of challenge, justice, and sometimes mercy. Through these stories, we see ourselves, our struggles with identity, morality, and meaning. Now I want to hear from you. Which god or spirit of death fascinated you the most? Was it the silent Queen Hel, the trickster Baron Samedi, or perhaps the Japanese Shinigami? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one, and your voice helps make this community richer and more connected. If you find yourself drawn to the darker corners of mythology, the strange and mysterious tales that explore the unknown, make sure to like this video. Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a dive into epic myths from around the world. There is so much more to explore, and I can't wait to take you there. Thank you for watching and being part of this journey. Remember, the stories we tell about death shape how we live. So stay curious, keep questioning, and until next time, dive deep into myth and mystery.